1990 WWF Market Scene auctions just ended a little while ago, and they had a lot of action on them. It was very curious to see the final prices. I was surprised in some ways, I was not surprised in other ways, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about it. I know it's been a long time since I've done some wrestling card videos. The summer just was a lot busier than I expected, and I'm still working on trying to put together a studio. I've been buying wrestling collections and cards and just kind of been overwhelmed with that as well. But I had to get on tonight and talk about these 1990 Market Scene cards from Australia, New Zealand. This is Series 3, but this is the Series 3 extra set. Some people call it a test set. People have thrown out different numbers on how many sets there are, and they are very rare and they hardly ever come up. And so people were watching these. Some of the watches had like 35 to 40 on them tonight. And even though the bidding actually pretty much came down to 2 bidders for every auction. And that was kind of interesting, I thought, as well. And not only 2 bidders on every auction, but way ahead of everybody else. So what does that say for the future? Who are these people? Did the person who win, I believe one person won 14 out of the 15. Is that person one of the big wrestling card collectors that we know about, see on social media and everything else? Why did one of the other cards go to someone else? And what kind of contest was this? So the first card that went was the Demolition card. PSA 6, it went for $183.50. The person in second place was someone who was not in second place in any of the other auctions. This was the only auction that the second place bidder was in second place for. The first place person was the one that won 14 out of the 15 auctions. And so $183.50 PSA 6 Demolition. There's not a lot of Demolition cards. We know they probably will never get into like the Panini sets and stuff like that. So that's a very interesting bid, $183.50. That's kind of what started it off. And then we kind of saw, I think we kind of saw where they were going to go for the rest of the night. The Earthquake followed, PSA 6, $182.50. Earthquake's not in the original set, so it's kind of a cool. Earthquake is would have to definitely be considered Earthquake's rookie. And so PSA 6, and this one was also a different second place person, and this is the only auction that this second place person was second place in as well. I didn't check if these were 2 different separate second place people. I didn't check if they had bid lower in any of the other auctions, so we're talking right around the $180 mark for both of their second place bids at this time. The person, I'll get to, same person won 14 out of the 15 of these, and I'll get to the one, I'll just mention that when that person does not win one of the auctions. So the Sean Mooney went next, and then I was very curious on this one. $70, PSA 7, so it was even a step up in dollars. Mooney, well, actually the 2 cards that went for under 100 were the 2 that I figured would be the least popular. Actually, there might have been one other one too, and we'll get to that one at the end, and that one did go for well over 100. But the Sean Mooney, not very popular. He's got a classic card, and this card, I believe that's his only 2 cards that he has that were, I mean, unless he has like a remake card from one of these newer independent sets or something like that. But from his time of working in the WWE, those were his 2 cards. Actually, WWF at the time. And so PSA 7 went for $70. Lowest card of the lot of 15. So the person who is probably either adding to sets, chasing sets, or anything else. Doesn't. Actually, I don't know why I didn't say this, but part of the reason I'm so interested in this set is I have the entire set, and so I'll put a link in the, I did a video on it not too long ago, so I'll put a link down into the comments section so you can see going through the entire set, and then you can actually see the cards as well. So I was kind of staying back and watching these, and that's kind of, so the Mooney at 70, that was the one I could have possibly got in on, but I just didn't have any need for a Mooney, an extra Sean Mooney card. It's not someone I like Sean Mooney. I actually met him at WrestleCon a few years ago, and I was the right age when Sean Mooney would do the event center, so I thought he was kind of cool. Really nice guy too. Heart Foundation, $300, PSA 8. So that makes sense that it would go a little, I thought this one would go higher, so 300 from the 180 to 183. 300 doesn't surprise me too much. You have possible Bret Hart or Heart Foundation collectors out there. You have So this one had some lower bids that were a little higher. The two main bidders were the two ones that topped it, but the third place bid was a lot closer than most of the third place bids than some of the other ones. For most of the auctions, especially now coming from here on forward, the two top bidders were way higher than the third place bidder. I mean, we're talking like, I mean, most of these are going between $100, $200, $300, and the third place bidder would be like 40, 50, 60, maybe at most like 20% of the auction. So two people are really betting on these cards, and I don't blame them, or two people have the means to go after them. And so it was kind of interesting to see. I'm actually very interested to see if we ever find out anything about who won the majority of these auctions, 14 of the 15. Mr. Fuji, PSA 7 went for $213. So here, Sean Mooney, PSA 7 went for $70. Mr. Fuji, PSA 7 went for $213. I didn't get that. I thought those two would be a little closer together in price. Mr. Fuji does have a little bit of a wrestling career, and so more than just an announcer. I think Mooney just lost because he was an announcer. So interesting price on the Fuji, because there's our PSA 7. So we have PSA 7 of, I'd say, one of the lesser desirable cards in the set overall. I mean, I think it's fair to say that. I think if you took 100 wrestling card collectors, the Fuji would rate pretty low in their, if they were rating all the cards in the set at the same grade level, Fuji would be towards the bottom. Then this is the one that might have surprised me the most for the night. Roddy Piper. It was only a PSA 6, but it went for $104.38. This is Hot Rod. This is, in my opinion, this was the best wrestler out there. I mean, one of the all-time greats, Hot Rod. His cards have been kind of picking up a little traction. His rookie card's been picking up traction, both Topps, OPC, and Scanlon. If you watch his like Panini stuff, he's got the stuff in the Chronicle set, and those usually go for a little bit. He had some sort of, I think he's got 2023 Prism, and those they go for more. I mean, they don't go for Hogan prices, they don't go for Andre prices, they don't go for Rock prices, Stone Cold, but he's like in that next tier. They go for like, there's just that next, and you can't take the women out because the women are priced totally differently because people chase them for different reasons. And so I'm trying to compare Piper. He goes for more than someone like RVD. He goes for more than Goldberg. He goes for more than just people like that. So he's kind of stuck in that range. So I was very surprised that he only went for 104. I would, from comparing the rest of the prices, I would have expected about 175 to 200 at the PSA 6, right? At least at the Earthquake Demolition price. But so someone actually was the same buyer, so he probably feels like, he or she feels like they got a little bit of a bargain for that one. Rick Martel, PSA 7, and this was the one that, no, this was still the one that was bought by the same winner of all the other ones. $159.27, PSA 7. Rick Martel, back to the PSA 7s, so didn't go for as much as the Fuji, didn't go for as much as the Mooney, and this is after them. So someone just didn't, the second place person just didn't want it as much, and that's where the Rick Martel ended up. Rick Martel has a little difference in his card than he's in the original Series 3, but I think it's between Rick Martel and Rick the Model Martel are the two differences. Then this is the one that, well, this is the one that went for the highest, and it also was the one that was won by someone who had, this is the only card that this bidder won on. Barry Windham, $332. PSA 8. So you have a high PSA, PSA 8. Actually, the only other one was the Hart Foundation one for $300. So this is the second place bidder for most of the auctions, actually all but two, actually ended up winning this, and the person that won 14 of the 15 finished in second in this one. Interesting to note, was someone grabbing this to finish off their set, or to someone have a set with 15 of the 20 and needed this one to fill a hole? That could be interesting to find out. How frustrated is the first person that they didn't win this card? I mean, so $332, so that PSA 8. Was it the PSA factor? Does someone think this is the PSA to get? Even the Heart Foundation did go for 302. We seem to see the PSA did seem to make a pretty big difference in this, just from between 8, 7, 6, and 5. We're going to get to some of this. Actually, everything else is going to be 6s and 5s from here on out. We go with Hakeem, and this one actually went for $201.50, PSA 6. And for the rest of these, it's just going to be the person who won 14 of 15 was the top bidder, and the person who won the Barry Windham was the second place bidder, and also mostly the second place bidder on for the rest of the auctions too, except for the first two. Did he or she come in late? Missed the first two, and then all of a sudden decided to start bidding. The Genius, 173.50, PSA 6. That was an interesting one. Lanny Poffo has gotten a little bit more credit. He passed away not too long ago, brother of the Macho Man, but not that popular of a wrestler. I certainly didn't think this was, at the PSA 6, I didn't think this was a $173 card. I mean, you got the, let's compare it to the Piper at PSA 6 at 104. Yeah. Danny Davis, this was not surprising that this was the only other one not to go for 100. This was actually a PSA 5, so the lowest grade we've seen so far. Danny Davis, I loved the Danny Davis story. I loved the referee story because I mean, I was a young kid who hated Danny Davis. He had heat with me because all the times he screwed all the good wrestlers, and I've met him at conventions and WrestleCons and stuff like that. I love talking to him, and the problem is this generation just doesn't appreciate him. And so he'll sit there and talk to you for we've talked for a long time, extended conversations for a few different times. I just love hearing stories and talking to him. He's written a book. I love his book. His book is very interesting. And he also wrestled as Mr. X back in the 1980s as just a enhancement talent to, but that was kind of cool. So he was, before he became Dangerous Danny Davis the wrestler, right around WrestleMania 3, just before WrestleMania 3, he wrestled as Mr. X, and he would referee those same nights then. So it was kind of really cool story. $96, PSA 5, not surprising. I think that's about what you expect at this point. Mean Gene Okerlund went for $260, PSA 6. Yep, Mean Gene Okerlund, not a surprise. Very popular. I know there's some Mean Gene Okerlund collectors out there. $260, PSA 6. Gorilla Monsoon, back to the PSA 5, 103. Probably about where you'd expect. Probably if it was a PSA 6, you're probably talking 150 to 175. I think the condition kept this one down a little bit. Monsoon is respected, but I don't think there's a lot of Monsoon collectors out there. You have Barry Horowitz, PSA 5. This one, I was wondering if it would make 100, and it made 155. So someone must have needed for his or her collection and went 155 on it. And then finally, the Jack Tunney ends up at 103.77, PSA 5. Jack Tunney, also, both Horowitz and Tunney and Monsoon have cards in the Classic set from the same year. I don't think they have too many other cards between them. Monsoon actually has some cards in some of those newer sets, not the really new ones, but like the tops from the 2016, 2017 as like a legend, and that's kind of what we have. So very interesting. It's just amazing it was amazing to watch these auctions. It was kind of fun to watch the auctions too, because I wanted to see what they did, and then also I think it kept a lot of the big, because there were a lot of cards that were wrestling cards that were going on at the same time, that were ending at the same time, and I snuck in, and I couldn't believe how many cards didn't get bids, and I was just bidding. I was like the lone bidder. I was the lone bidder on so many auctions. I added a card that I'm really excited about, so like a once in every few months that you find. Really excited to add that card in my collection, and it went way too low. It went for way lower than I was when I even bid on it, so I was really excited about that. And so just that's kind of something that happens. The eyes of the wrestling card world were watching these end tonight. Two people ended up taking advantage of it, mostly one person even. Like I said, I'm really curious to see. I'm going to watch the wrestling card social media world and to see. I would assume that whoever won them probably will put it out there at some point, and see, maybe even tonight they are doing that just for winning them. I think a lot of times people wait until at least they get them in hand, because you don't want you want to actually make sure you get them and not someone else coming in or something like that too. It always happens that way. So I'm glad we're back. I don't even know what episode this is, but I have a few other ideas for some wrestling card episodes. I'm really just trying to get the time and trying to get a spot where I can actually do some decent recording, rather this kind of in between all the sorting tables that I have right now. But doing my best, but I really wanted to get this out tonight because it's so interesting. Link below for a flip through for the entire set, and actually I talk about it too, so it's more than just a flip through. I talk about the set and how I'm really glad that I got it in really nice condition, and really great to have in my collection, so I don't have to be bidding on auctions like this. And it's a really interesting set. I'd love to. I'm actually been doing some research on it too. Other people have done research on it. I don't agree with everything that they've said in their research, so it's kind of interesting. I won't claim to have all the answers, but in some of my research I found out a few different things, and I don't necessarily agree with everything that's been put out there about this set, but I don't have all the sources yet to make a video on it, but hopefully someday maybe I will.